Never ask a demon about Mary, because when Saint Dominic forced them to tell the truth, what they revealed changed everything we thought we knew about prayer. This is the story of the moment when hell itself was forced to confess. When devils screaming in rage had to admit their greatest fear. When an entire crowd watched as demons were pulled from a possessed man's body one prayer at a time. And what those demons said that day has been hidden from most Christians for centuries. This is not folklore. This is recorded history from the 13th century. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the enemy doesn't want you to know this story. Here's the thing. We live in a time where prayer feels optional, like it's something nice to do when we remember, when we have time, when we feel like it. The Rosary especially gets pushed to the side. People say it's repetitive, boring, old-fashioned, that there are better ways to pray, more modern ways, more relevant ways. And honestly, the enemy loves that. Because if he can get us to stop praying the Rosary, he wins. If he can convince us that those beads our grandmothers carried are just superstition, he wins. If he can make us believe that repeating the same prayer over and over does nothing, he wins. But what if I told you that demons themselves have admitted the exact opposite? What if I told you that when forced to tell the truth under the power of God, devils scream that the Rosary is their worst nightmare? That they fear Mary more than all the saints combined? That they literally cannot win against someone who prays the Rosary faithfully? This isn't speculation. This isn't theory. This is what happened when St. Dominic commanded demons to speak the truth in front of a massive crowd in the year 1208. Let me set the scene for you. Southern France. Early 13th century. The Albigensian heresy is spreading like wildfire. These heretics taught that all matter is evil, that marriage is wrong, that the Catholic Church is corrupt, that Jesus didn't really have a physical body. Entire regions were falling away from the faith, towns were divided, families were torn apart. St. Dominic was there trying to convert these heretics back to the truth. He was preaching, he was debating, he was reasoning with them, but nothing was working. These people were stubborn, they were convinced. They had their own teachers and their own arguments. And behind it all, St. Dominic could sense something darker, something demonic driving this rebellion against the church. One day, Dominic was preaching about the Rosary. He was explaining how this simple prayer could defeat any heresy, how Mary herself had given him this weapon against evil. And the heretics were mocking him, laughing at him, calling him superstitious and simple-minded. Then something happened that nobody expected. One of the heretics, a man who was particularly vocal against the church, suddenly started convulsing. His body twisted, his face contorted, his voice changed, and everyone realized what was happening. This man wasn't just a heretic. He was possessed. Multiple demons had been living inside him, driving his hatred against Mary and the church. Saint Dominic saw his opportunity. He commanded the demons in the name of Jesus Christ to tell the truth about Mary and the Rosary, and they had no choice. Under the power of God, demons cannot lie when commanded by a saint. They have to speak the truth even though it destroys their own plans. And what they said next shocked everyone. The demons started screaming, not in rage against Dominic, not in anger at the crowd, but in rage against Mary herself. They called her their enemy, their downfall, their destruction. They asked why she came from heaven to torture them so grievously. Think about that. These are beings of pure evil, fallen angels who rebelled against God himself. And they're crying out in pain because of a human woman. Because of Mary, they call her the advocate of sinners, the one who snatches souls from the very jaws of hell, a most sure path to heaven. Then they had to confess something even more painful. They said, "We must, in spite of ourselves, tell the whole truth and confess before everyone who it is who is the cause of our shame and our ruin." Can you imagine? Demons forced to publicly admit their own defeat? Forced to tell a crowd of heretics that the very person they've been taught to ignore is actually the most powerful weapon against evil. But it gets better. The demons continued speaking. And remember, every word they spoke was true because they couldn't lie under St. Dominic's command. They said, "Listen, you Christians, this Mother of Jesus is most powerful in saving her servants from falling into hell. She is like the sun which destroys the darkness of our wiles and subtlety. It is she who uncovers our hidden plots, breaks our snares, and makes our temptations useless and ineffective." Let that sink in. The enemy himself admits that Mary destroys their darkness, that she uncovers their hidden plots, that she breaks their snares, that she makes their temptations ineffective. This isn't Catholic propaganda. This is the testimony of demons under oath to God, but they weren't done yet. The devils had to keep confessing. And what they said next is what the enemy has been hiding from Christians for centuries. They said, and I'm quoting here, "No soul who has really persevered in her service has ever been damned with us." Read that again. No soul who persevered in devotion to Mary has ever gone to hell. Zero. None. According to the demons themselves. They went on, "One single sigh that she offers to the Blessed Trinity is worth far more than all the prayers, desires, and aspirations of all the saints. We fear her more than all the other saints in heaven together, and we have no success with her faithful servants." Think about what they're saying. One prayer from Mary is worth more than all the prayers of all the saints combined. Demons fear her more than everyone else in heaven, and they cannot win against her faithful servants. But here's where it gets really personal. The demons then admitted something about death itself. They said, "Many Christians who call on her at the hour of death and who really ought to be damned according to our ordinary standards are saved by her intercession." According to our ordinary standards. Meaning by human logic, by the weight of their sins, by the demons' usual calculations, these people should go to hell. But Mary saves them anyway, at the last moment. In the final breath, when all seems lost, she intercedes and pulls them from the fire. The demons were furious about this. You could hear it in their words. They were being forced to admit that their carefully laid plans, their years of temptation, their corruption of souls, all of it gets undone by one prayer to Mary at the moment of death. But they still had more to confess. And this is where it directly relates to the Rosary. The demons said, "If that Marietta," and they spit the name out like poison, "if that Marietta did not counter our plans and our efforts, we should have overcome the church and destroyed it long before this, and caused all the orders in the church to fall into error and infidelity." They're admitting their entire plan. Destroy the church, corrupt the religious orders, lead everyone into error. And the only thing stopping them is Mary. Without her, they would have already won. Then came the confession about the Rosary specifically. The demon said, "Nobody who perseveres in saying the Rosary will be damned, because she obtains for her servants the grace of true contrition for their sins by which they obtain pardon and mercy. Nobody who perseveres in the Rosary will be damned." Not maybe. Not probably. Nobody. Because Mary obtains the grace of true repentance for those who pray to her faithfully. This is why the enemy fights so hard against the Rosary. This is why he makes it seem boring, repetitive, outdated, unnecessary, because he knows the truth. He knows that anyone who keeps praying the Rosary will not end up in hell. And he's been forced to admit it. After this confession, St. Dominic did something simple but powerful. He had everyone in the crowd pray the Rosary, slowly, with great devotion, every single person, including the heretics who had been mocking him moments before. And as they prayed, something visible happened. At every Hail Mary, demons came out of the possessed man's body. They looked like red-hot coals, burning, screaming, being forced out by each prayer. One Hail Mary, one demon expelled. Another Hail Mary, another demon gone. The crowd watched this happen. This wasn't in private. This wasn't hidden. Hundreds of people saw demons physically leaving this man's body as they prayed the Rosary together. Each prayer was like a hammer blow to the forces of darkness. When the last Hail Mary was said, the last demon was expelled. The man was free, completely delivered. And Mary, though invisible, gave her blessing to everyone there. The crowd felt it. A wave of joy and peace washed over them. They had just witnessed the power of the Rosary in real time. So what does this mean for us today? What does this story from 800 years ago have to do with our lives right now? Everything. The same demons that possessed that heretic are still working today. The same strategies they admitted to using in the 13th century are still being used now. The same plots to destroy the church, the same temptations to lead souls to hell, the same fear of Mary and the Rosary. Nothing has changed except the century. And if demons admitted back then that nobody who perseveres in the Rosary will be damned, that's still true today. If they confess that Mary saves even those who should be damned by calling on her at death, that's still happening now. If they revealed that one prayer from Mary is worth more than all the prayers of all the saints, that hasn't become less true over time. This is why your grandmother's rosary beads matter. This is why that repetitive prayer you thought was boring is actually the most powerful weapon you have. This is why the enemy works so hard to make you forget about Mary. Because he knows the truth. He's been forced to admit it. And he doesn't want you to know. The rosary isn't optional. It's not just for old people. It's not outdated or irrelevant. It's the nuclear weapon of spiritual warfare. And the enemy himself has testified to that under oath to God. Every time you pray a Hail Mary, you're doing what that crowd did in France 8 centuries ago. You're expelling demons. You're breaking snares. You're making temptations ineffective. You're calling down the protection of the woman that hell itself fears more than anyone. And here's what really matters. The devils admitted that no one who perseveres in praying the rosary will be damned. Not that it helps. Not that it's nice. Not that it might work. They said nobody who keeps praying it will go to hell. That's a guarantee from the mouth of the enemy. So when you feel like the rosary is boring, remember this story. When you think you're too busy, remember what demons were forced to confess. When you wonder if it really matters, remember that hell itself has admitted it fears this prayer more than anything else. Saint Dominic proved it that day. Hundreds of witnesses saw it. Heretics converted because of it. And the story has been preserved for centuries so that we would know the truth. Mary is your advocate. She snatches souls from hell. She breaks the enemy's plans. She makes temptations useless. And she does all of this through the simple prayer of the rosary. That's not Catholic tradition talking. That's demons under divine command being forced to tell the truth. Subscribe if you want more stories the enemy doesn't want you to know.